Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So today I would like, as it was said, to tell you a little bit about my research in Transcarpathian Ukraine mostly. And I will try not to take too much time because I really hope for questions and discussion. But the presentation is based, I'm social anthropologist, so my presentation is based on field work, which means I spent, I don't know, like 8 months, probably 9 months in Transcarpathia, hanging around the apparition site at Jublik, about which I will be talking, and also Mukachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy, the priests, the Bishop Milan Shashik as well, trying to interview everybody who agreed to be interviewed and to observe daily life there. And Jublik you have on this map next to Irshava in Transcarpathia. And the other two places which are underlined here are also recent apparition sites. One in Lisznia next to Drohobych in Galicia and one in Pribrale next to Seczowce. Today I will be talking only about Jublik, but actually these apparitions happened roughly at the same time, and also kept the people around this apparition kept contact with each other. So basically you could also say that Jublik was an initial apparition and it spread, sort of to give you a context. So the field research was done between 2006 and 2011 at and around Jublik, which before 2002 was a small spring, basically, between two Transcarpathian villages of Nizhne Bolotne and Wilhivka. And at the moment, it is an impressive and still growing pilgrimage place. So this is a cover of the first leaflet which was published at the apparition site. This is the place how it looked in 2011, part of this place. So on the 27th of August 2002, two girls from Nizhne Bolotne for the first time met there and talked to a beautiful woman who introduced herself to them as a Virgin Mary. And since then, the pilgrimage place at Jublik grew. From the very beginning, it became a building site with new chapels, devotional places, crosses. This is a devotional place. You have to basically, it's a kind of bath built around the cross, and you walk 33 times around the cross praying the rosary in order to receive some special blessing. Hotels for pilgrims, cloister buildings, they were appearing there for the last 15 years. So each year when I was coming to the place, the new things I could see being built and new devotions developing. And I heard about new miracles taking place. And I could see how the yearly meetings of youth organized during anniversaries of the first apparitions grew in numbers of participants and types of activities undertaken by them. So I'm a social scientist, so what I do research on are not, of course, the theological aspects of the apparitions, or I do research on the psychological state of the visionaries. I don't do this type of research. What I am interested in are the social effects of apparitions, of such events, how they influence the social life of people involved in their making, I would say. As it was said, in 2015 I published a book, Negotiating Marian Apparitions, Religion and Politics in Transcarpathian Ukraine, which was based on this research. And why I mention it because the structure of this book is built around the response of the Virgin Mary to a question that was posed to her by the visionaries on September the 1st, 2002. Basically, they asked, why did you come to us? And she replied, I came to help restore the authority of the priests among the people, to unite those divided people and to unite the church. So I assumed that whatever you think about the veracity of the given apparitions, and this particular apparition is very much contested also locally, and I think to this audience I don't have to explain the relation between private revelations and public revelations and so on. I decided to take the words of the Virgin Mary, as given by the visionaries, as an indication of concerns of people in the region where she appears. So I asked myself, why it is that the message was about unity of the church and the people? Was there something wrong or special concerning the authority of the priests and relations between laity and clergy that she decided to address those issues directly? Was her initial message indicating some present challenges that explicitly or implicitly preoccupy the local people? And I think that this apparition does speak directly to concerns of people, especially Eastern Catholics who live in Transcarpathia. And it does so in many ways. And during this presentation, at least until the question time, I want to focus on questions of unity, leaving the authority of the priest for the discussion if you are interested. The other thing what do I have here? Oh, okay, this is, for example, the church which they started to build there. They claim that it will be the biggest church in Europe. I don't know, but it's being built, and it's estimated that 25 years will be required to finish the building. Okay, and this is a picture from another angle.
That was just my... But what you said was kind of interesting.
So another thing I think maybe I don't have to explain for this audience in detail is the position of Transcarpathia in contemporary Ukraine. I will just say a few sentences and we'll see. We all know that this part of Ukraine has a specific history. Depending if we look towards Transcarpathia from Kiev or from Budapest or Prague, yeah, if you see the map, we can call it, and it's called Zakarpathia or Podkarpathia, which is an indication how we see its belonging. We also know that there are diverging visions on the future of this region in terms of closeness and belonging to particular state formation and identity of its inhabitants. And
But what you said was kind of interesting.
If we talk about Muchachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy, you can say that if Transcarpathia nowadays is administratively part of Ukrainian state, the Muchachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy, as you know, has this special status. So basically at the moment in Ukraine you have two Greek Catholic churches, the Muchachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy and the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. So basically it is the most obvious way in contemporary Ukraine in which the special history, cultural difference of Transcarpathia is marked administratively as a unit. And the status of Muchachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy as a separate administrative unit of the Catholic Church is very much challenged in Transcarpathia nowadays. So,
But what you said was kind of interesting.
so its separation from the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church is a matter which can be discussed, which shouldn't be taken for granted. There are some people within the eparchy, some priests, who support the state of things, and others who think that it's a mistake or even a state treason. And then the two units should be merged together in some way. So, if you look closely again at the site of Jubilee Apparitions, it is quite clear that this site supports the vision of Transcarpathia as the integral part of Ukraine and its Slavic-speaking inhabitants as Ukrainians. So on August 31st, 2002, the Virgin Mary told the visionaries to invite a bishop to visit the place of her apparition and pray there. And according to the leaflet published at the apparition site, she named the bishop to be invited. It was the elderly Bishop Ivan Marchitych. And probably you also know, I think maybe, who he was. He was one of the leaders of the underground church, a Greek Catholic church in Transcarpathia, which was actually divided, the practice of the underground Catholic Church in Transcarpathia was divided into two branches. One branch, under the leadership of Ivan Margitic, was keeping close ties with the underground hierarchs, bishops in Galicia. So, for example, he was himself consecrated as a bishop by the Galician bishop Sofron Dmitrienko, while the other part of underground priests kept close contacts with Alexander Hira in Kazakhstan, and he was coming back to the eparchy. And his plenipotentiaries in Transcarpathia, like Murani or Tutai. And after the relegalization of the church, there was these two kind of visions of Mukachevo Greek Catholic eparchy future met in Vatican, and the option which seen Mukachevo Greek Catholic eparchy as a separate unit won, actually. So basically, it was re-established as a separate unit of the Catholic Church.
But like you said,
I told you it will be. I'm very sorry about it. So Bishop Margitic died in September 2003, and in April 2011, several of his followers formed the Ivan Margitic Greek Catholic Association in Uzhgorod, which listed the changing the administrative structure of the Greek Catholic Church in Transcarpathia as one of its principal goals, the unification with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. And he was the one who was invited as the first bishop to the Apparition site. So the site is not officially recognized by the Mukachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy, but the present bishop appears there regularly, so Bishop Milan Shashik. Nevertheless, it was not always the case. At the time of the first apparitions, it was Bishop Ivan Semedy who was leading the eparchy, and he, of course, belonged to this strand of underground activity, which was related to Alexander Hira. And he was also a direct opponent of Ivan Margitic during these negotiations in Vatican in 1991. He was a strong adversary of Jubilee apparitions, I would say. In 2002, he issued decrees forbidding the erection of any structures at the site and entrusted the care of the pilgrims to a local parish priest from Virchivka village, who was not involved in the initial apparitional events. The bishop also asked the superiors of the Basilian order to facilitate the removal of Basilian monk Athanasi from Jublik, who was present at the apparition site from the very first days, and it's now definitely its leader, its clerical leader. Bishop Semedy did not intend to foster an institutional environment that would allow for negotiations between the church and any social movement that formed around the apparition site. After he retired in January 2003, and the leadership was granted to Bishop Milan Shashik, the situation changed. So my own interviews with Bishop and both with supporters and critics of the site show that although he never was an enthusiast of Jublik, he decided to involve himself in negotiations with Jublik followers. Many people were just saying that he wanted to avoid any kind of split. He wanted precisely this unity to be kept. But he also established a commission which works at the site. But with the passing years, this commission was coming, they're coming only to the apparition site when really there is a new miracle happening, and there are quite a few. And basically, after an initial period of turmoil, the Jublik site became the focus of careful negotiations and, although still highly controversial, gradually started to gain legitimacy, a process that has been helped by a periodical presence of Bishop Shashik. He also gave his temporary permission to establish an episcopal monastic order at Jublik, and the Father Athanasi, the leader, now left the Basilians and is now the head of this monastic order at Jublik, the special eparchial order and this place. So both the defenders and the supporters of Jublik admit that without a network of devoted defenders, the lay defenders, the apparition site would not stand a chance of surviving. And there are at least two crucial strands of support for Jublik. One is local, and another is transregional. The local strand is concentrated among a group of inhabitants of mostly Nizhny Bolotne, the village where the visionaries and Father Athanasi were born, and I will talk about it a little bit later, but many supporters argue that without the help of pilgrims and activists from Lviv, Ternopil, Ivano-Frankivsk and other towns of Galicia, Jublik would not have survived. Already in the first weeks after the apparitions, buses full of pilgrims from the other side of the Carpathian Mountains appeared at Jublik, and they still continue to constitute the most devoted followers today. As one pilgrimage organizer from Lviv told me in summer 2011, and I quote, "In 2002, the Virgin Mary appeared at Jublik, and I felt an urge to go. On Saturday, I returned to Lviv and went to Jublik. A whole bus was going there. I led their prayers all the way through, and we arrived to Jublik with prayers, with song, and so we got there. At that time, there was only a spring there and a lot of mud and rubbish. I was standing next to the spring with a lot of other people. We were standing, praying, singing songs to the Mother of God. There was only forest there, and I had the vision, and I screamed this out of loudly, that I saw many people there, that I saw the Holy Eucharist, monstrance carried by a priest and many people following him. And there was no forest. I saw this place as it is now, when the forest was cut. The people were staring at me, and I screamed so loudly that the mother of one of the visionaries remembered me afterwards. And we were at the Holy Liturgy. We could smell the scent, and the lightness could be felt, something really extraordinary. And if you were at the holy place, for me it was as in Lourdes. I thought I am in Lourdes, although everything is well organized and built there, and here there was only a spring. And then I started to gather pilgrimages almost every week. We were going to Jublik, a full bus of 40, 50 people. And after 2 months, I gathered 3 buses of people, everybody from my factory. So the presence of supporters from Western Ukraine is crucial for understanding the significance of Jublik in the history and present status of Transcarpathia in Ukraine, and the Muchachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy in particular. Although Jublik apparitions provide multiple meanings and interpretation of the changes in the religious life of Catholics in Transcarpathia and beyond, one of the important characteristics of this apparition site is that it supports the vision of Transcarpathia as an integral part of Ukraine and its inhabitants as Ukrainians. Another example is the liturgies are celebrated at Jublik exclusively in Ukrainian. I was told both by supporters as well as adversaries of the site that it was the explicit wish of the Virgin Mary. One of the priests who conducted liturgies, I talked to him, was stopped during the liturgy because he was reading the liturgy in Church Slavonic and was told that Virgin Mary wishes Ukrainian. And for him personally, it was one of the reasons to stop coming to this place, because he wanted actually to be there, to feel the presence of the apparition. And he is actually, it's also interesting because he is a strong supporter of the position that Transcarpathia is a culturally, economically, and historically different from the rest of Ukraine, But also he described himself as Ukrainian, as a citizen. So he thinks about himself as a loyal to the Ukrainian state, but he didn't like this feeling of being told that he cannot use the language, basically. You know, this is was like this. For example, another example is all Transcarpathia actually lives according to Central European time, but Jublik lives according to the Kiev time. So the liturgies are scheduled 1 hour later than what people have of their watches. Moreover, the Virgin Mary was not the only figure to appear to the visionaries. Over time, in fact, the site became known as an apparition site of the Holy Family and other holy figures. She remained the most important focus of devotion for pilgrims, but there were others as well. For example, I quote from a Jublik booklet, which is sold to the pilgrims. The next day was the feast of all saints of the Ukrainian nation. After morning liturgy, the visionary said that she saw, next to the Mother of God and two of the main apostles, Peter and Paul, one person she had not seen before. The Mother of God told her that it was the Apostle Andrew. Must this be significant for our Ukrainian land, that she saw the Apostle Andrew that very day? We know from the legends that are alive among our people that it was Andrew Protokletos, who had walked upon Ukrainian land and had blessed the mountains upon which Kiev was later built. In truth, we are convinced again and again that the Holy Family comes not for some special region of Ukraine, but for the entire nation, for all of Ukrainian society and beyond. It is not surprising that the movements of the so-called Russians or other Transcarpathian minorities have accused Jublik of Ukrainian nationalism. Serving God and nation have nothing to do with each other in this case. So, in this passage, Athanasi acknowledges the significance of the apparitions for Ukraine and his understanding of the position of the Russian activists who treat the Jublik apparition as being pro-Ukrainian, while at the same time refuting accusations of nationalism. He is aware of that the political messages of the Virgin Mary cannot be welcomed by the present authorities of the eparchy, but as the visions seem to support stronger integration of Transcarpathia with Ukraine in any respect. But there are also other things which really kind of, through material, are a material expression of linking Transcarpathia to the rest of Ukraine. For example, this is the first station of the 300-kilometer-long stations of the crossroads built across the Carpathian Mountains from Lviv to Jublik. I interviewed the people who kind of sponsored it from Lviv there. And the idea to install the stations of the cross appeared to them after visiting the site in June 2003. And this is a site, this place is at the High Castle in Lviv, when apparently a Virgin Mary appeared in 1787. And this is the beginning, and the end is in Jublik of this road. And they continue along the main Lviv-Muchachevo-Jublik road. And as the initiator stated, the Stations of the Cross were an important sign of unity between the two Greek Catholic churches in Ukraine, and as a powerful tool for potential conversions that he hopes will result from walking or more often driving past the Stations of the Cross. Practically all organized pilgrimage to Jublik from Lviv stop at the stations, and one of the people, actually the person who is running the website of Jublik at the moment, he is a Ukrainian from Galicia who lives now in Muchachevo. He is envisioning that actually you could expand this the stations of the crossroads. So, for example, in Stryj, on the way between Lviv and Jublik, you could have a branch which goes towards Kiev, for example, or even further. So basically, you could cover all Ukraine through this religious devotion into one huge land. Since 2011, my contacts with the Apparition site has been mainly virtual, so I was not going there anymore. There is a Facebook page. There is also a lot of information about Jublik on internet portals like Zakarpathia Online, Katolicki Ochladacz, or Podzieje Zakarpathia. And basically, the people who are around Jublik, they are involved in all present Ukrainian events, and they were from the time of Orange Revolution until now. So, for example, the very first monument to Niebiesna Jasotnia, which is the heavenly squad. So this is the people who were fighting on Maidan in Kiev, yes, in 2013 and 14, was established at Jublik. So the first monument was established at Jublik, the first monument in Transcarpathia. And it was established on November the 21st, 2013, and this date is celebrated as the Day of Dignity and Freedom of Ukraine, established to mark the two Ukrainian revolutions, the Orange Revolution and the Revolution of Dignity, as the events on 2013-14 are being known. The monks from Jublik are also active participants on Maidan. Father Athanasi this is Father Athanasi, he took the miraculous Divine Mercy image, which appeared apparently miraculously at Jublik in 2008, and he used it to bless the people gathered there. And they also gather things which to support the troops, mainly the volunteers in the eastern Ukraine, especially those who are wounded in local hospitals. Okay, this is not yet. Most importantly, however, the Jublik really became a site of patriotic education for the youth of Transcarpathia, and not only. There is really the popularity of the ZIS, Congress, or something like this, of the Christian youth. It's organized every year around the anniversary of the Apparitions at the end of August, and it's really big. There are people coming, there's like hundreds of young people coming there. And it's very successful. I would think that from the point of view of young people, it's very well organized. There are sport competitions, plays, film presentations, in addition to spiritual exercises, liturgies, and prayers. They prepare all kinds of theater performances. But the most important patriotic event of the Congress is participants' trip to Krasne Pole. I don't know if you know, where in 1939 the troops of Carpatho Ukraine were defeated by the Hungarian army. And on one of the monks on the Jublik website explains that it is important to commemorate those who were rarely remembered as the fighters for an independent Ukraine. He also describes one of his trips to Krasne Pole with youth. It's basically his remembering of the trip, and he explains that Transcarpathia actually was not an overtly patriotic land, especially in comparison to the Lviv of Ivano-Frankivsk region. So it was for him very positively surprising and moving moment when he asked the young people on the bus to sing a few patriotic or religious songs, whatever they choose. And they decided to sing the Ukrainian national anthem with their hands on their hearts. And Brother Theodore followed the song by saying, "Glory to Ukraine," of course. And the children replied, "Glory to the heroes." For him, this was a very moving moment. And on the way back from Krasne Pole to Jublik, they again joined in songs that showed the, I quote, patriotic Ukrainian spirit of our Transcarpathian children. We know that there were some powers, the Hungarian nationalists, for example, who tried to prove that we are not Ukrainians, but someone else. But the siege fighters died, proving that this is indeed Carpatho Ukraine, which was united with the whole Ukrainian land, and that our mother tongue is the Ukrainian language. And he finished by saying that this annual celebration in Krasne Pole would be a tribute to those youngsters who died there and proved that their ideas on the unity of Transcarpathia of Ukraine were still alive in the region in the 21st century. And since 2014, the youth also pray for Ukrainian soldiers and volunteers who died in eastern Ukraine and those who died in Kiev during the Revolution of Dignity. They bless a flag, the Ukrainian flag, which is then taken to the troops and so on. So to finish this sort of part of my talk, I want to return to the Bishop Ivan Marchitych, who said in the interview given to the Ukrainian Catholic University in the year 2000, I quote, "It is a pity, but even among the leadership of our eparchy, there are people who claim that Russians are not Ukrainians. It is a lie that the Russians had nothing in common with Ukrainians historically. Even today some claim this. Such a view was, for example, presented during talks on the unification of the Mukachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy with the Kiev seat. This was an official statement." So apparitions in Jublik can be definitely, I think, interpreted as an attempt to revive the battle for the unification of the eparchy with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, which appeared to be lost in 1991. Still this time, divine intervention was brought into play. As anthropologist Galina Walchinova says, based on her review of anthropological works that analyze recourse to one or another kind of supernatural power, divine intervention is sought especially in situations where human agency fails to produce the desired effects. But of course, Jublik is not only Ukraine and Transcarpathia. It has many aspects which can be also seen as reflected in the Virgin Mary messages. One of them is a question on where one is going to seek a unity and relatedness in terms of religious devotion and practice as Catholic. I interpret it as a comment of a shift from parish-based religiosity to the transnational or even global network of Catholics. So what we are seeing at this picture is a practice of psalter reading in a Transcarpathian village, actually in Nizhne Bolotne itself, so next to the apparition. It is where people, when a person dies, people gather at the home of the deceased and pray psalter together as a whole village. And you can see that they are touching this bread, which is symbolizing the deceased, and they are touching, basically, if you would see it further away, they are touching each other on the arm. So basically, what you see at the moment of prayer, after they read all the psalter, and it lasts 3-4 hours, they touch each other. It's a physical network of people. They are just like showing we are one with ourselves and with the people. But Jublik is changing something. And to introduce you to this thought, I will give you an example. So when I was staying in Nizhne Bolotne, usually I stayed in this village, not in Wilchivka, from Saturday to Sunday, I had to decide where to go to the liturgy. And I could go to a mass at the local parish in Nizhne Bolotne, or I could follow those of my acquaintances who would walk the 2 kilometers walk to Jublik. Some people do this, other people do that. There is also a large group, like me, who decide where to go from Sunday to Sunday differently. Because theoretically, of course, the liturgy is the same in both places, and attendance at either would satisfy the third commandment. But although the liturgies may be the same, they are not the same type of social occasion. So wherever a person I was staying with, Maria, a middle-aged woman who always attended the liturgy at the local parish in Nizhne Bolotne, heard that I opted for the longer Sunday walk to Jublik, she usually nodded with understanding, but also with a bit of disapproval. She told me that she understood my reasons. I had to write a book. So on religious life in the region, Jublik was an important event in the lives of Greek Catholics in the Inshawa Deanery. She also believed in the apparition, right? So yes, I did have to go there and see it for myself. There was actually nothing wrong with Jublik, which celebrated the same Eucharist, the same Jesus and the same Virgin Mary as did the parish church. But, she added, didn't I think that Father Ivan, Nizhne Bolotne parish priest, deserved better than to be left alone? He cared for the people and was a good priest, so why should we abandon him and go to Jublik? Were we to leave our church, the church that our parents kept alive for the Catholic faith during the socialist era? Because actually in Nizhne Bolotne, they kept the key to this church. They were opening and praying themselves in this church. They had officially assigned Orthodox priests, but actually I don't know how much the eparchy is doing research in archives of Vatican. I don't know, but basically it's being claimed that this particular Orthodox priest has a secret agreement with Vatican, and actually he was somehow not really fully Orthodox and so on and so forth. But what is definitely true, he was not coming to this village very often, like twice a year. And for the rest of the year, they were doing it without a priest. They had a key to the church. One Sunday evening, on the way to Jublik, I spoke to another woman, also a person I knew very well, who decided to make a longer walk to Jublik that particular Sunday, but sometimes she was also going to a parish church. And why not, she said. She explained that it was actually quite nice to celebrate the Master, not in an enclosed church, but practically out in the woods. There was fresh air, a good weather, a nice walk, young people all around, and the chance to be away from the gaze of the neighbors. At Jublik, one could stand wherever one chose, with no fixed places. And in the parish church in Nizhne Bolotne, they still had this tradition of paying for their place, so they have places assigned. And so, in the parish church, even those without their own paid seats, stillettes, usually found themselves in the same spots week after week and knew exactly who would be standing next to them. And one felt observed there. In Jublik, she said, one could stand directly in front of the altar one week and then a place further away, almost hidden among the trees. One felt freer there. And some local people were also going there, but it was generally a place full of strangers, people coming from Irszawa, Muchachevo, even from Galicia, all those pilgrims arriving from far away. And one can imagine being one of them. So many young people, nice singing, fresh air. Of course, the parish liturgy was important, she added, and Father Ivan needed support, but sometimes it's nice to go to Jublik. So, priests conduct the same Greek Catholic liturgy in both Jublik and the parish church, but the rites are not social equivalents. While the basic form as described in the liturgical books remains almost the same, the ways in which the rites are actually enacted vary in significant ways. The difference is striking even for an external observer. In the parish church, all the women wear dresses and skirts. This is a picture from Psaltery, but it's how it looks in the parish church as well. And cover their heads with scarves that are usually dark in color. The liturgy is sung, and the laity is led in their song by a group of male, usually older cantors. It is often the case that the cantors sing in Church Slavonic, while the priest conducts the liturgy in Ukrainian. This is like this in Nizhne Bolotne. The melodies stay the same week after week and are typical of a given region. At Jublik, by contrast, the songs are led by a choir of young people, mostly girls. Before the liturgy, during communion, after the final blessing, the choir sings both Ukrainian versions of contemporary Catholic hymns and pieces composed by Father Athanasi, sometimes accompanied by guitars and keyboards. The songs can be cheerful and passionate, but are always full of directly expressed emotions, and you can buy CDs and listen to them at home later. Many women wear pants, and some of them don't cover their hair, while others wear colorful or transparent scarves. Although Father Athanasi does observe people's behavior and doesn't allow walking and talking during the liturgy, one still feels freer at Jublik in the midst of all the new people singing at nature. So actually, choosing to go to Jublik is not a matter of confirming the apparition and staying in parish church. It's not a matter of rejecting the apparition. Everyone, actually locally, everyone seems to be in an agreement, in Niżne Błotne at least, that it is the place of the Virgin Mary apparition. The controversy involves the possible replacement of parish-based religious practice with practice based on the feeling of unity with larger network of Catholics united through the particular type of devotion all over the world. And the sort of the call for unity expressed through the Virgin Mary Jubilee can be read as a commentary on the transformations of the shape of religious life and prioritization of various kinds of identities, local, global, and national, and based on a commonality of everyday experience, values, and of interests on the part of people who belong to a transnational religious organization, such as Catholic Church. The local parish community in Transcarpathia is still important and seen as a part of the local church under the guidance of the bishop. Still, there has been an important change in how people see the role of organizational religion in their lives. And going back to the concepts expressed in the messages of the Virgin Mary of Jubilee, how people view what this unity she calls for is about. I argue that we can observe here a shift towards religious identity based on the combination of commonality and connectedness in which people define their religious life through the kinds of religious messages and symbols they look for and subscribe to, as well as through the relational ties they link them to others whom they expect to be interested in the same types of religious messages and experiences. The organizational church is still an important part of this religious configuration, but it's a church far away. So basically what they need to know that it's a Catholic devotion. So this is what they know. It's not any more important that it was how our fathers were doing this. It is important, basically the Pope is important, and the Vatican, basically. And if it is a part of what they imagine as the global transnational Catholic practice, it's what they want. And the example of it, for example, is there is this youth organization, Children of the Holy Family at Jubilee, which is really crucial for running the site. And, these were the young people who were peers of the visionaries at the beginning. And now they are very often away in big cities studying. But what they do is they have one of the younger monks, Father Theodore, send them messages every Tuesday by mobile with a text from the Bible, and they agree that at 9 p.m. every Tuesday they are praying together. It was Dziewiatnice do Świętego Ducha, a prayer, yes? I don't know how it is in English, I'm sorry. So, and this is precisely how they see themselves. They are a group of people who are interested in the same type of religiosity, yeah? And they can be connected wherever they are. They don't need this parish-based religiosity. So I think that here there is a shift. And the very idea of establishing this Children of the Holy Family as a formal organization came to the young people where they realized during their meetings with pilgrims coming to Jubilee, especially during these meetings of youth, which are organized once a year, that youth organizations are part of modern religious landscape within the Catholic Church. At that time, just a few years ago, in Transcarpathia itself, the parish was virtually the only formation of lay activity. So basically you could have a rosary circle in the parish, but it was parish bounded. Formal Catholic religious organizations then extended beyond the borders of the parish were rare or almost non-existent. And this has changed in recent years. Such organizations are appearing. Jubilee is not the only one. Bishop Milan Szaszek is also supporting this kind of religious practices. He's very open to this. But Jubilee, I would claim, has become a place where elements of religious practice that are innovations from the point of view of parish life in Transcarpathian villages can be enacted and tried on. We just try different things. And as Brother Theodore, who is taking care of this Children of the Holy Family organization, told me in 2011, you know, only 2 or 3 old men sing in the parish church, but the young people are here, and this is exciting. After Jublik, our youth became more active. Before Jublik, they went to church on Sunday, and that was it. And now their parents say, you should move to Jublik because nobody can keep you from the place anyway. And they have new acquaintances thanks to Jublik. One of our girls went to Silesian Brothers in Lviv, and she brings new ideas from dance songs and dances. And this is normal among Roman Catholics, and it is normal in Poland, but in Eastern Rite, I am from Poland, right? So it's why he is referring to Poland. No, how could you dance in the church, for example? It was the Salesian Don Bosco, a Roman Catholic community, who taught her this, and she brought it to us. In Uzhgorod, they tried it out in the cathedral church, but here it is know-how. It is new, and they are introducing it. The most important outcome is that the church is becoming interesting for the young people. So I claim that Jublik provides one of the avenues through which changes to how religious life is carried out in Transcarpathia are being made. Viewing oneself as a member of a bounded, localized religious community of practice is being replaced by seeing oneself as connected to others through practices and symbols. Present transformations in the religious arena in Transcarpathia indicate that a change is occurring in the way people understand themselves as participants in religion. In the case of Transcarpathian Greek Catholics, their identification with a local bounded community is supplemented, sometimes replaced, but mostly supplemented, by their religious self-understanding as being connected to others through devotions that employ a set of religious symbols, beliefs, and practices defined by them as Catholic. Those symbols and practices are not necessarily grounded in local religious life, understood as a continuation of ancestral ways, but are instead seen as being legitimized through a religious center, the Vatican, that is located beyond the immediate locality. And these apparitional movements are part of this process. And I want to finish here because I was talking long enough, but I wait for your comments and questions. Thank you. Okay.
So what happened to Marian and Olenka, the two vision now? I mean, they were little kids when this happened, so what's happening to them now?
Only one of them stayed as the visionary at the apparition site, which is Olenka. At the moment, also, she's not there because she's studying in Lviv. Well, maybe now she's back. I mean, I don't know, like half a year ago, she was not there. Marianka had, there were a lot of all kinds of disagreements around at the site, and Marianka was taken away by her father, so she was not coming to for a few years she was not coming to the place at all, and after that she started to come, but not as a visionary, but just like one of the pilgrims. It's a complicated story, and I think a little bit very complicated. I don't have a courage to talk about it really, because it's really a huge conflict. But they are not, I would say, in comparison to other apparition sites like Medjugorje, for example, the Roman Catholic sites, the visionaries are marginal. They are not at the center of what is happening there, and they are not, like, in Medjugorje, the visionaries are taking a microphone and saying the message. It never happens in Jublik, no.
So they're not central to what's going on?
Absolutely not. No. I would say no.
So you talked a lot about the interactions between the Transcarpathian Greek Catholics, the Ukrainian Greek Catholics proper, and even the Roman Catholics that are finding themselves all drawn to this area. What is the state of the Orthodox Church? Or did they just think that this is their thing and they just kind of stay away from it, or are they like actually interested in what's going on?
Actually, the site advertised itself as the site for another unity of all Christians. So the Orthodox are invited. There are some priests, but from outside Transcarpathia, I would say, coming and bringing parishioners. Mostly the Orthodox in Transcarpathia stay away from the site. But there is, and also, I know this type of cross, is used in Transcarpathia actually only in Orthodox churches, right? But in Jublik it is used as well. So they also they openly say that they are very open, and it happens that some priests bring, but this is smaller. It's not really a big issue, I would say. Practically, it's not much of the interaction.
What did you say that the liturgy was formerly done in Church Slavonic, and then they introduced Ukrainian at some point?
Yeah, yes. Basically, there is in Transcarpathia nowadays. The priest has a choice, right? He can conduct the liturgy in Church Slavonic or in Ukrainian. Of course, sometimes there are negotiations with the parishioners. Like in Uzhgorod and Mukachevo, there are in both languages liturgies because some parishioners wanted to. In Jublik, there was a specific situation because Bishop Semedy wanted, as it's usual done at the apparition sites, to remove all the people who were at the moment there and kind of, give the church probably the space to look at the site. So he invited another priest to conduct liturgies there because pilgrims were there. And this particular priest was always doing this in Church Slavonic. But he was stopped during the liturgy by the visionary. I mean, not like, hello. Literally, and told that actually the Virgin Mary wishes the Ukrainian language. That's well known. No, well, I think it's more complicated than this, but I think that there are people in this room who are even better experts on this than I am.
What language do the youth speak?
You see, I mean, it's. I would say it's Transcarpathian. Some people would say it's Rusin. Yeah. I mean, this is not a literally Ukrainian, definitely, because I was learning to speak, like on the spot. I didn't take any language course, right? So I was learning the language from the people, right? Knowing Polish, knowing Russian, and then I went and I learned the language. And it was, when I went to Lviv, then it was not the same language, right? Yeah. You were first, I think.
Oh, no, I guess it might have already answered the question, but one of the messages you said was, or the themes of this apparition was Christian unity.
Yes.
So how is that related to the fact that the Virgin Mary asked him to have liturgy only in Ukrainian versus Church Slavonic, which would be not even a spoken language, which would be more universal in that sense?
The spoken language?
No, that's what I'm saying, where Our Lady...
Well...
Oh, I'm confused about that.
No. It's. I think the logic behind it is quite simple. You see, I mean, everybody learns Ukrainian, literally Ukrainian at school. It's Ukraine.
Oh, okay. I was confused what you said earlier.
Yeah. So people don't speak this every day as an everyday language at home, but they learn this. Maybe it was. I was another time at the Romja seminary in Uzhgorod, and also they have a huge discussion about it because. Precisely, there was a discussion about the liturgical language. What language should we be using during liturgy? Because there is a big movement, also among people. It's not like that there is, there are people who have different opinions of this matter, also among the parishioners. So some people want the liturgy in Ukrainian. Some people want it in Church Slavonic. I don't think, apart from one priest whom I know, I don't think that no one ever tried to do it in vernacular language, like not a liturgy, but at least the preaching. Well, there's one, but this was not really well seen by anyone, as far as I know. Yeah, so...
was not well seen?
Sorry? When he was trying to speak as people speak at home, during the preaching, like really the everyday language, which was not what the people are used to. Yeah, but kind of changing a voice and an accent, I was told. So, yeah.
So they're used to speaking in Ukrainian when they're preaching, or not necessarily?
Most of the priests, no, not necessarily. I think he was modulating his voice also during liturgy, if I'm saying, modulating the Church Slavonic so it would sound differently. I mean, everything during the church. But I think, no, they don't, some priests, like the priest from Nizhne Bolotne, he is also, he is preaching in Ukrainian, right? But there are other priests who are preaching, I think, in Transcarpathian or Russian or whatever you would say. But it's probably, I'm not, this is a very difficult question for me because I had to, there are also differences between villages. And I do very much appreciate all the people who are foreigners and who go to Transcarpathia and who claim to know exactly which dialect people are speaking, you see. I am not that skilled. I learned to distinguish the literally Ukrainian and the Ukrainian liturgy from the Church Slavonic liturgy, but I kind of understand people, all of them. And sometimes for me it's difficult to say how close they are to which version of any language. So what I am telling you, it's more about their comments about languages. So like with this priest who tried to speak in a vernacular language local, I was told he is doing it too much. He is really trying to speak as if he was kind of in the fields or at home. Yeah?
Are there others besides you asking the question about what's the political side of this? How is the church involved in the politics, or is the church being used by the government?
No. This is not a. Yeah, I would reply as I was telling about the position of the Mukachevo Greek Catholic Eparchy at the moment under Bishop Milan Shashik, and I think. You see, I mean, it's probably, okay, you can, whatever, correct me or tell me that I am completely wrong, but from what I am reading and seeing, it's in many cases of apparitions is like this. So these are huge events. There are hundreds of people, and not only from Galician Ukraine, not only from Galicia, but from Hungary, Slovakia. All Transcarpathia is going there. It's a huge. Transcarpathia, because of the situation with the borders, after the Second World War, lost its pilgrimage places. The Maria Poach, the Kłokoczów in Slovakia. So basically there are no huge places. This place was at the beginning, at least, when I started working this, it was presented by the Father Atanasi as the new Ukrainian as well, but also Transcarpathian, Mukachevo Eparchy, pilgrimage place, which would unite also the eparchy in a sense. And additionally united with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church as well. And I don't think, I think that while doing research there, I had a feeling, for a long time I was just asking myself, sometimes when no one talks very loudly about what you see, obviously you ask yourself, you are just, I'm making things up, maybe I'm dreaming this. It's not something which is openly discussed, as I told you now. It's very blatant, as I said, but this is like obvious, Kiev time, Ukrainian language, this Stations of the Cross road, but it's not. The issue of relations between Transcarpathia and Ukraine, Ukrainians and Russians and Transcarpathians is so sensitive that I, as a stranger, can talk about it, being here. It's not discussed this way. This is like everything is so, and I think that everybody knows it. But sometimes there are explosions. Like at this conference, I started to talk about it when I discussed the question of the liturgical language, and there was this person standing up and saying, wait 10 more years and you will all want to switch to Ukrainian because you are taught in school. It will come, I'm sure. Although you now refuse because there was a rector of the seminary who was telling that he cannot because, as you said, to God I am talking in Church Slavonic. Because this was my parents were doing this and I'm going to do this. But it was, in these moments there are explosions, but usually, they are kind of together. They know what is happening. Everybody knows, but it's not very much discussed openly, no. Yes?
The legal position of the Vatican, has there been any investigation or any...
No, the commission is local because it's usually how it is with the apparition cases. It's first investigated by the local bishop, and it's the state of the art. I think that it will be one of those apparitions who will be investigated for the years to come, because the status under investigation is the most often given status to apparition sites, when the church just gives itself a time or herself a time to look at this. There was an attempt at the part of the managers of this site at the very, very beginning to get us support from Vatican. They went just to Vatican with the visionaries. But there is of course, no official statement. The only thing that they brought is a picture with the Pope, John Paul II at the time still. And this is sometimes used as the legitimation thing. But it's a huge, and I mean, I don't want to leave you with this impression because I've chosen such a part of it, but actually Jublik is doing, it's a great place for many people, really. I mean, and I discussed Jublik I interviewed actually all the priests in Irsava Deanery, and I always talked about Jublik, whatever their position, individual position was, the supporters, the neutral, the defenders, whatever. And mostly they told us, I mean, this is really the place where the people go. This is the place where the people go. And we go after them because they need the pastoral care. And all these questions which we know somehow that you are asking yourself what is happening there, it's not the main thing for the religious leader. Yeah, for the religious leader, the main question are the religious fruits of it. If people are praying more, if people are having good thoughts after this or something, I don't know, you can probably phrase it better than I do. So I see in it this political aspects, but I am a social scientist, you see. This is like a little bit different looking at this. Thank you very much.
And we wish you...
Thank you. Thanks a lot.